The third most common mistake I hear are people getting worried about carbs or thinking all carbs are bad. And this is really where the keto and low carb movement confused everyone because they lumped all carbohydrates into one category and said bad. But all carbs are not the same nor bad. In fact, the body's main energy source is carbohydrates, and your brain loves carbs. A whole food plant-based diet is a high carbohydrate diet with around 60 to 80% coming from carbs, 10 to 20% protein, and 10 to 20% fat, just on average. The difference is complex versus simple carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates come from whole plants like vegetables, fruit, whole grains, and beans. Simple carbohydrates come from things like table sugar, honey, or high fructose corn syrup. Complex carbs take longer for our body to break down, giving us sustained energy, while simple carbs like sugar are absorbed quickly, spike our blood sugar, and then cause our body to pump out a lot of insulin, resulting in a crash a few hours later. And again, sugar and high fructose corn syrup are associated with obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. Now, here's some more truth bombs about carbs. Studies actually show that those who eat more carbs and less fat, but more calories, are actually thinner. In the China study in the 70s and 80s, they compared the Chinese and Americans who had similar physical jobs to adjust for calorie expenditure and saw that the Chinese were actually eating more calories, but were significantly thinner than their American counterparts who were eating less calories. One of the main differences was that the Chinese were eating less fat than Americans. Now that fat was replaced by carbohydrates. Americans were eating over 30% fat, and the Chinese were only eating about 5 to 10% fat. So from this study came the low-fat diet craze, and recommendations were made to reduce fat to 30%. But compared to the Chinese, it was still a very high-fat diet. And the reason it wasn't recommended to be lower was that the committee knew they would have to tell people to eat less meat and cheese. And the meat and dairy lobbyists fought against this, and so the truth was hidden. Americans were given half measures. And how carbohydrates are processed in the body has a lot to do with this. Carbohydrates are first burned as energy. Then excess carbohydrates are stored as glycogen in our muscles and liver. Then if there is still more excess left over, it's burned as body heat. The body does not turn carbohydrates into body fat actually very efficiently. There's about a 30% loss of calories in the process of digestion. On the other hand, dietary fat is stored as body fat very easily and efficiently, only losing about 3% calories in the process. Fat is not burned as energy right away because it's about long-term stored energy in times of famine. So carbs don't make you fat. Also, those sugary junk foods, they're really just a conduit for more fat because they're made with butter, cheese, eggs, whole milk, and oil. It was never really the carbs' fault in the first place. So let's talk about insulin resistance. It's much better understood now that it's actually fat that is the problem. Fat in your tissues and in your food gum up the lock on your cells so that insulin, which is the key, can't open the cell's lock to let sugar get in. This causes the sugar to back up in your blood like a traffic jam, leading to high blood sugar. If this keeps happening, you end up with prediabetes or diabetes. The excess sugar in your blood does damage your cells and organs, but again, sugar was never the cause, it was the symptom. So reducing high-fat foods like oil, butter, cheese, eggs, and animal products is the solution to preventing and reversing diabetes. Because when you don't have fat blocking the cell lock, then insulin can work better and let sugar in. Carbs actually make you more insulin sensitive, and fat makes you more insulin resistant. The old advice to diabetics to count carbs only addresses the symptoms, but doesn't do anything to improve the underlying cause. That's why over the years, many have to take more and more diabetes medications and insulin because insulin resistance is only getting worse. And if you're familiar with Cyrus Khambatta and Robbie Barbero, this is what they teach in their book, Mastering Diabetes. The fourth most common mistake I see are people trying to go plant-based cold turkey or without support. Cold turkey just doesn't work for most people because it's that crash diet mentality, And willpower will only last for a few days, weeks, or months at most. And then you fall right back into old habits. And, when you get tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. Slow and steady changes over a longer period creates more results because you're addressing habit change over time. Making a few small changes each week that you can incorporate into your life easily gives you confidence and kind of calms down your brain so it's not freaking out from so much change. Then as you gain confidence, you can add a few more small changes after 1 to 2 weeks. Now, this is a focus on habits, not on the scale, calorie counting, or portion control. It's really about adding healthy habits rather than trying to take too many things away in the beginning. And as you crowd out the bad calories for the good ones, you lose weight more consistently without feeling deprived. And there's just so much to learn. You can't do it overnight. You have to really change your thinking around how you eat and your relationship with food. A diet is something that is temporary, restrictive, requires perfection to do it right, is only focused on calories or portions, and is primarily about weight loss, not health. You have to ignore your hunger, so this makes them really hard to stick to. Now, a lifestyle is about long-term, where you get to eat more and focus on progress, not perfection, and getting better over time. It's also focused on nutrient density and filling your body up with the most nutrient-dense foods to improve your health. And when you do this, weight loss happens as a bonus side effect. And you get to listen to your body instead of like in a diet where you have to ignore hunger pains because you've already hit some arbitrary calorie limit for the day that most likely isn't even accurate. And you got to get support. Whole food plant-based is not the norm. And you may be the only one trying to do this. Your spouse may not be on board, and you have to figure out how that's going to work in your household. You need to find a community for support, maybe a friend, a family member, local group, or Facebook group. They can give you encouragement, tips, recipes, help getting back on track, and being able to follow in someone else's footsteps who's already done that and succeeded really helps. And having an accountability partner is so important. You can be 65% more likely to achieve your goals. There are going to be days where you want to give up and it doesn't seem worth it. And you need, somebody to pick you up and tell you to keep going and that it will be worth it in the end. I wish I had somebody to follow and guide me when I first tried eating this way, somebody I could ask questions and get help with, when I felt frustrations or stuck. I know I wouldn't have given up because I would have been able to have the support I needed to get back on track more quickly. But is there anything missing by only eating plants? So vitamin B12 is the only nutrient not found in plants, but it doesn't actually come from animals either. Animals are just the middleman or middle cow. It actually comes from bacteria in the dirt that the animals eat, and then it gets stored in their tissues, which omnivores then eat. Back in our Paleolithic days, we probably got enough B12 from the dirt left on our fruits and vegetables and from drinking stream water, but we clean our water and wash our foods so thoroughly these days that we don't get enough of it. Now, this is a good thing because like Dr. Michael Greger says, we also don't get cholera or dysentery. However, most of the meat sold comes from factory farms, and most of the animals are actually deficient in vitamin B12 as well, so lots of omnivores are not getting enough either by eating meat or eggs. Vitamin B12 has so many important functions in the body, including our nervous system, metabolism, red blood cells, and being deficient can have life-threatening consequences. Vitamin B12 deficiency is also known as the great masquerader because it can be so sneaky and have so many different symptoms and even increase your risk of stroke. Now, a few vegan foods are high in vitamin B12, but that's because they're fortified and you'd have to eat a lot every day to replenish your stores. So without supplementation, you're unlikely to get enough B12 on a plant-based diet. So Dr. Michael Greger recommends 2,000 micrograms a week or 50 micrograms a day of cyanocobalamin. You can look on the back of the bottle to see what type of a chewable, sublingual, or liquid taken on an empty stomach. Now, those over 65 should take at least 1,000 micrograms a day because they tend to lack the intrinsic factor, which is an enzyme required to break down the B12. Another vitamin that can be low regardless if you're on a plant-based diet or not is vitamin D. And vitamin D deficiency is very common in the US and the world, with about 42% of the population being deficient. Some are referring to it as the invisible epidemic. You've probably heard that vitamin D is important for bone health, and that's because we can't absorb calcium without vitamin D. But it's also important for immune function, cancer prevention, wound healing, and even depression. And researchers have found that many people with depression also have low levels of vitamin D. And it's actually not a vitamin, but a hormone. And it's also known as the sunshine vitamin because when we spend time in the sun, our body produces vitamin D. But because most of us spend our lives indoors or live in more northern climates farther from the equator, we don't get enough direct sunlight, or in the winter time as well. When we are out in the sun, we're slathered with sunscreen and covered up. And it really only takes about 15 minutes in direct sunlight on our exposed skin without sunscreen for most of us to produce the vitamin D we need. But if you have darker skin, you are also at higher risk of vitamin D deficiency because the melanin in your skin acts as a natural sunscreen, blocking the sun's rays. Now, some plant-based foods have vitamin D like mushrooms, and many plant-based milks are fortified with it, just like cow's milk is fortified with vitamin D. But for many people, this still isn't enough, and they may need to take a supplement. And because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, it's important you don't overdo it with a supplement because it has a risk of toxicity. The safe upper limit is no more than about 5,000 international units a day, and you should only take more under a doctor's supervision. Now, the best absorbed form is vitamin D3. Just be sure to look for a vegan vitamin D3 version made from algae. Again, omega-3s important for our brain, heart, and reducing inflammation, lowering the risk of Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease. And walnuts, flaxseed, chia seed, and hemp seeds are high sources of omega-3s, with just 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed giving you your daily amount. Now, plant-based sources are primarily the short-chain version, ALA. And ALA is converted into the longer-chain EPA and DPA in your body, but not everybody converts very well. So some people may need to supplement directly with the long-chain EPA and DHA omega-3s. So you can look for a vegan algae-based supplement that has both EPA and DHA in it for about 300 milligrams a day. And if you're worried about any nutritional deficiencies, it's really just best to get tested and get a baseline because we are all different bio individuals and absorb nutrients differently. And if your doctor isn't supportive of wanting to go plant-based, then I recommend you find a plant-based doctor who is and is knowledgeable about this way of eating. You can go to plantbaseddoctors.org to find many different doctors in different specialties in your area. And I know everybody always asks me what I take, and I've actually been taking the Complement Essential, which is a vegan vitamin that contains only really the common nutrients that vegans may be low in. Some of the ones that we've talked about today, like B12, vitamin D, omega-3s, and iodine, if you're avoiding table salt. So what do I eat in a day? Let me give you some ideas. And these are totally whole food, plant-based, oil-free, vegan, no refined sugar and low sodium. And I don't eat rabbit food. I eat real, delicious, filling meals. So these are only examples based on my caloric needs. I eat large servings, sometimes double portions, so I'm comfortably full. For breakfast, I might have vegan banana walnut pancakes, some pomegranate arrows. For lunch, a large bowl of white bean chili, some clementines. For dinner, we might have whole grain pasta with marinara and soy curls, some broccoli. For snacks or dessert, maybe sweet potato brownies or banana. And this example is 1,636 calories, 69 grams of protein, 29 grams of fat, 300 grams of carbs, and 54 grams of fiber. Another example would be some avocado toast with some arugula, get those greens in, a cup of raspberries. For lunch, I might have a Mediterranean Buddha bowl with quinoa, chickpeas, broccoli, roasted red peppers, hummus, balsamic vinegar. For dinner, we might have vegan American goulash, some green beans. For snacks or dessert, blueberry muffins, maybe an apple. This example is 1,546 calories, 65 grams of protein, 28 grams of fat, and 275 grams of carbs, and 67 grams of fiber. And another example would be some tofu breakfast tacos, blackberries. For lunch, Instant Pot wild rice, kiwi. For dinner, we love Southwestern potatoes with cashew nacho cream sauce, cheese sauce, roasted potatoes, black beans, corn, avocado, green onions, cilantro, salsa. For snacks or dessert, maybe some barbecue roasted chickpeas or carrot cake muffin. And this example is 1,711 calories, 73 grams of protein, 35 grams of fat, 305 grams of carbs, and 55 grams of fiber. So I want to talk quickly about the process I take my Plant Powered Life members through, and it's called Your Path to Health. So each week I teach adding just one thing to focus on and learn so that transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet is slow and easy and not all at once or overwhelming. This is the secret to long-term success. So each letter of the acronym HEALTH stands for a different concept, new recipes and cooking techniques, and a new week in transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet. Week 1 is H, harness the power of whole grains for gut health. Week 2 is E, enjoy fruit for improved immunity. Week 3 is A, add colorful vegetables to supercharge your nutrient density. Week 4 is L, to love legumes for high protein and fiber. Week 5 is T, to trade oil for nuts and seeds to support your brain and heart. And week 6 is how to keep your plant-powered life going long term. And I really believe it's important to have that progress, not perfection mindset when you're making big lifestyle changes. You have to take your time and slowly change so your mind and body has a chance to adapt without alarm bells going off all the time. And the more you eat whole food plant-based, the better you'll feel and the more benefits you're going to experience. And it gets easier over time. If you slip up, just get back on. Don't shame yourself for messing up. Just treat it as a learning experience and make the best choice you can each and every day. So I want to share with you some success stories from regular people who have absolutely transformed their lives through eating whole food plant-based. So first there's Katie Westriker, who wrote, after the COVID-19 lockdown, I didn't feel very positive about longevity or quality of life. I felt crummy, had high blood pressure, diabetes, and an edema in my legs. My A1C is back down now. I got off metformin, cut my blood pressure meds in half, lowered my cholesterol numbers, and my edema is just about gone. So far, I've lost 40 pounds. Your plan has been the single most important step for me to work towards totally regaining my health. Thank you, Kim, from the bottom of my heart. Amazing. Then Michelle Kavanaugh told me, before beginning whole food plant-based eating, the SAD diet was killing me. It was not good at all, and I had just been diagnosed with high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, and high blood pressure. Quick update, my latest A1C is currently at 5.1. My fasting blood sugar is usually in the lower 90s, and I rarely spike above 160. I've lost a total of 103 pounds, and I'm just 3 or 4 pounds from my goal. My B12 and vitamin D levels are now in normal ranges. Everything now feels like this is just how I eat. It's just how I live. I'm so glad I signed up. Plant Powered Life has helped this former SAD dieter transition to a healthy life. Thank you. And Michelle was very hesitant in the beginning and feeling a little overwhelmed, but she made changes slowly and focused on really just making a little improvement each week and has done amazing. Then there's Kathy, who shared with me, before starting this program, my blood pressure, cholesterol, and weight were all very high. I didn't know if I would have a future. In only 6 months, I lost 50 pounds, lowered my blood pressure 10 points, and went from eating Velveeta cheese every day to eating vegetables every day. This is the first time in my life I truly know I will never gain the weight back or go back to eating fast food, cheese, and chips. Plant Powered Life has given me the support I needed. I know for sure that I can keep this going to make it a lifestyle and achieve my ultimate goals. Thank you, Kim, for saving my life. And lastly, there's Linda Jones, who said, my mother died a day before her 65th birthday. My father died 6 months short of his 65th, and I've been working hard to keep the promise I made to my mother at her funeral, that I will live the long and healthy life God intended for her. Several years ago, I was over 250 pounds with an A1C over 12. Today, my A1C is about 6.4 by giving up the vegan junk foods. I've released over 100 pounds. Thank you guys for all your support. Kim and this group made a major difference in my life. So if you're interested in working with me to achieve your own success story, I want to invite you to check out my program, Plant Powered Life. I teach a slow and steady approach to transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet so you can create those long-term results. And you'll learn how to cook delicious oil-free whole food plant-based meals, customized meal plans, batch cook, meal prep, eat out at restaurants, and more. And you'll get ongoing support from our incredible community of over 1,500 members. And I do monthly live cooking demos and coaching calls to keep you encouraged and inspired and help you work through any struggles or challenges. And you can learn more about the program at plantpoweredlifeprogram.com/info. So thank you so much for letting me share my passion for plants during this incredible Real Truth About Health Summit. If anybody wants to learn more from me about whole food plant-based to improve their health, you can check my website, simplyplantbasedkitchen.com, my program, Plant Powered Life, at plantpoweredlifeprogram.com/info, or my best-selling book, Plant Powered, that's available exclusively on Amazon. Thank you so much.